the renewed fighting that is taking place with a lot of vengeance in Syria because of how the rebels made a sudden move in Aleppo, which first initially made the Syrian forces beat a hasty retreat, but now they're coming back, especially from the air, aided by Russian fighter jets. We've got Atul Aneja with us, well-known foreign affairs expert, to talk about it with us. Good evening to you, Atul. What do you make of the situation, how it's shaping up in Syria? One had almost taken one eye off it, and that seemed to have been a mistake for a lot of people, not just in the region, but who deal with geopolitics around the world on a daily basis.
Yeah, Gautam, actually not entirely surprising because of a certain vacuum created in terms of the so-called resistance front. Now, just a little bit of background here, that it's Iran, it was the Houthis, the section of Shias in Iraq and Syria, which sort of formed this, along with Hamas, which formed the so-called resistance front vis-a-vis Israel. Now, what's happened is that after the Israelis have stuck back against Hamas following the October 7th attacks, now you find that the Hamas has been badly hit by that. And then you have the Hezbollah coming to a ceasefire with Israel after suffering heavy losses. So there's a sort of weakening of the so-called resistance front, and Syria is a part of it. Now, in this particular context, there is this attack on Syria, by groups, including the Al-Qaeda faction, which is moved into Aleppo. So this is opportunistic attack in the sense that they're finding that the resistance front has weakened. Syria is on the back foot because it's no longer getting the kind of backing it would otherwise have had from Hezbollah. So they see their opportunity here. In fact, it goes back to 2011 when there was an attempt to topple the government of Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria. So that had taken a reversal because of the situation. But given the current circumstances, the weakening of the Hezbollah, the so-called rebels have got another opportunity, along with their external backers, to try and topple Bashar again. And Aleppo is one of the most important cities. I think it is the largest city. It's not the second largest. I think it's the largest city, commercial capital, not far from the Turkish border. So if Aleppo falls, it will be a big blow to the government of Syria. And then the march goes further north. That seems to be the plan. But as you yourself pointed out, Gautam, that the reversal is coming, the heavy airstrikes against the groups which have sort of intruded into Syria. So we'll see. It might lead to a stalemate, and it's too early to say whether the particular onslaught will succeed or not.
Right. Just tell us, about a little bit more about these fighters that are being led by something called the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which you mentioned used to be an Al-Qaeda affiliate. And why was nothing done to prevent this sort of coming together of these opposition fighters in a fresh coalition?
To be honest, Gautam, this is real geopolitics. Whereas Al-Qaeda was the target by the American forces, we found that in Afghanistan from 2001 onwards. But, when it came to regime changes in the Middle East, West Asia, there was, and I was covering that when I was in my earlier posting in that region, that Adana, which is in Turkey, became a center where there was a convergence of many foreign intelligence services, including supporting the Al-Qaeda factions there, because the target there was Bashar al-Assad's government just after March 2011, if my memory goes right. So, it's in some areas you are a target, in some areas you are an ally. You'll never admit it openly. But that's the way the murky world of real politics works. And so I'm not surprised in this particular case that the Al-Qaeda may be used as the foot soldiers to achieve a bigger geopolitical objective, which is of regime change in Syria. Because if that happens, then with Hezbollah weakened, there's a sort of weakening of Syria or actually removal of Syria from the equation. then you have the dominance of Israel in the entire region, and frankly, also it would mean a big blow to Iran, which is the backer of the Syrian government, which is the backer of Hezbollah. So, in terms of the bigger picture, weakening of Iran, and actually decimation in a way of the so-called resistance front. Israel comes out as a dominant player if this succeeds. So it's a complete change in the geopolitical complexion of the region. It's
And
not just one.
does it change things for Russia as well? Because right now it's looking to push back the Ukrainians, and they seem to be under the impression that they might be winning that war, and now suddenly they have to put in some effort here as well to back Assad.
Absolutely. So the Russians are now fighting on two fronts in a way. You're looking at the Ukrainian front, and you always had a base, by the way. Tartus was a naval base, which is being run by the Russians, and there is also an air base which the
One of them has been taken over by the rebels.
sorry.
One of them has been taken over by the rebels.
No, I'm not sure where Harmain base will be taken over, because you will not have so
The one
many.
near Aleppo, I believe, has been taken over by the rebels.
It could be, but the bigger one is Harmain, and the other one is Tartus, which is the naval base. These are the pivots for force projection by Russia. And now, if the Russians are fighting on two fronts, but at the same time, the Russians will do everything in their power, and that is reflected in the kind of airstrikes which are taking place to protect Bashar al-Assad. Because if Bashar falls, then Iran gets exposed, and then your Eurasian line gets exposed to regime change. So this will be the first line of defense for the Russians to protect Bashar al-Assad. And that's the reason why you find the use of air power by the Russians. And you also find that the Iranian foreign minister is visiting Damascus. So it's going to be Iran and Russia doing their best and, going full steam ahead to make sure that this particular onslaught against the government of Bashar Assad fails. Let's see where it goes. But I think it's vital from a Russian perspective and from an Iranian perspective to make sure that the government in Damascus remains in place and not succumbs to the forces which are attacking it.
And at the same time, do you think the rebels too have very strong backing from overseas, from different quarters? They are quite a mishmash, but they've in the past have had very strong backers, including the US, which this time around is saying it has no hand in it.
You see, I'm sure they'll deny it. But if you look at it, in any situation, who can gain out of this situation and who can lose? So it's a bit of a speculation. But I will not be surprised that, as the dust settles over here, that there is American, and in fact, Israel benefits hugely if Bashar al-Assad is somewhere, the government is no longer in place. So, in the past, after 2011, the Turks were definitely involved in it, as were organizations like the Jabhat al-Nusra, which was again had a lot of Al-Qaeda elements and had the support. So I would go within that framework and dig deeper here as we go along as to the exact magnitude of the external interventions and the players who are involved in this. I will not be surprised if these countries are involved in this process.
And do you think Assad is in some real danger of losing his position? Something that, the Assads have been around for now more than 50 years. And if that happens, what would replace his regime is again an open question, and one which is an answer perhaps more worrisome than the existing regime.
Absolutely. So, but to be honest, Syria is still a large country, and it's too early to say that the government of Bashar al-Assad is in any real danger right now. I think the reinforcement will come, but to be very honest, this is US versus Russia. You are going to have the Iranians, Israelis, and I think frankly, even the Chinese may not be far behind, because in the past, when I was covering it in 2011 plus, after the regime change in Libya, the Chinese, at least diplomatically, were very active in saving Bashar al-Assad. So you have these powerful players now support Bashar al-Assad. So it's a lot of spectacle, the kind of speed at which things are moved. But you need a much bigger firepower. You need boots on the ground to hold territory. It's one thing to make intrusions into one major city and further, but to control that area, you need much more firepower. You need much more personnel. And I doubt whether this particular groups which are moving in strong enough to make an impact, but not strong enough to hold territory and to really endanger Bashar al-Assad right now.
And what kind of stake does India have in all this? It has always advocated a peaceful solution to most problems, be it Ukraine or the one that we see in Gaza and with the Hezbollah as well. A similar position here as well in the past.
Gautam, we need stability in this region. It's very, very important there is no spillover. We depend on our people are involved there in the region in terms of guest workers over there. Our energy supplies come from there. If you recall, not very long back, we were also pushing for the IMEC corridor, which goes through the region, through Haifa and then further into Saudi and other. So we need stability in this part of the world. And this is a regional problem. What's happening now is not just isolated to Syria, but to the entire region. And so we have stakes there for stability. And I think we have already said that, we would, it's in India's interest to be involved in settling and to play a conducive, helpful role to diffuse tensions out here. Because in the end, a rising economy like India needs stability for its own self-interest in the region.
Yes, certainly. Well, it's difficult to say which way things will go at the moment. But thanks for joining us and talking about it, Atul Aneja.
You're welcome, Gautam.